The hangar was silent save for the soft rasp of a cloth on aluminum and the distant whine of a taxiing jet, and yet that peace shattered under the weight of a voice soaked in mockery. "Hey, Grandpa, you need a hand with that museum piece, or are you just polishing it for another 50 years? The sarcasm bounced off the steel beams above, but George Patton didn't look up. His hands kept moving in slow, perfect circles, cleaning a spot on the polished flank of the P-51 Mustang that no one else could even see. His motions steady, sacred, methodical, as if each pass of the rag reached backward through time and pulled forward something worth remembering. The 3 airmen behind him did need no reverence if it kicked them in the teeth. Young loud. Crisp uniforms still smelling of starch, they loitered near the door, amused at their own cleverness, oblivious to the weight of ghosts in this place. One of them, a cocky one named Torres, strode forward, puffed up with youth and stripes and the kind of authority that thinks it earned by volume. "I'm serious, old-timer. You got clearance to be in here? This is a restricted area." George didn't speak, not out of fear or confusion, but out of something deeper. The kind of patience learned in silence above enemy skies, where rash words got you killed and calm hands kept you alive. The Mustang glinted under the overhead lights, her nose art reading "Valiant Lady," lovingly restored, though only George knew how to coax her spirit back to life. She wasn't his, technically. She belonged to a collector who leased the hangar, but she had once been his in every way that mattered. His hands had flown her. Bled in her, screamed into the wind through her canopy, prayed when the engine coughed smoke and the sky turned to flak. Behind him, another airman elbowed his buddy, grinning. "My grandpa's got one of these in plastic. Maybe Pops should start with that before he breaks something real." A laugh circled, small but sharp, and Torres stepped closer, his boots loud against concrete. "I asked you a question," he barked. "Let me see your base credentials. Now." George stood slowly, vertebrae creaking like old wood, and turned not sharply, but with the kind of presence that made people instinctively shut up. His eyes, pale and faded, still held oceans of storms and skies that these boys would never fly through. No anger lived in his face, just a long, tired sadness that stretched deeper than any insult. He reached into the inside pocket of his cracked brown leather jacket, the one older than every man in that room, and pulled out a civilian ID, plain, laminated, unimpressive, and handed it over. Torres snatched it, smirking. "George Patton? Cute name. Your folks must have had jokes." But before the sneering could get worse, another voice entered the space, not loud, but commanding. "That's his name." A young officer, Lieutenant Evans, had entered unseen, and his tone cut through the laughter like wire. "He has clearance. Wing commander signed off personally. That plane's part of the Heritage program." The air chilled slightly as the crowd of mechanics paused, uncertain now. Evans, a history buff who'd read every inch of the memo on the Mustang, stepped forward slowly, his eyes never leaving the airman holding the ID. "You might want to look again before you embarrass yourself further." But Torres, eager to reclaim ground, wasn't done. "Well, he should have said something," he muttered, then louder, "and he should be wearing ID visibly." George had already turned away, reaching to return the card to his wallet when Torres, drunk on the scent of power, plucked the wallet from his fingers. "What else you got in here, Grandpa? AARP card? Grandkids?" And when he cracked it open like a boy stealing candy, something slipped out. A small, black and white photograph fluttering to the floor. 5 grinning young men in flight suits beside a very familiar P-51 with "Valiant Lady" visible behind them. Someone near the tool bench whispered, "Wait." But Torres wasn't done digging. He found a flap, flipped it, and stopped. In his palm lay a tarnished pair of silver wings, heavier than standard issue, different, the kind pinned only on combat pilots, those who'd danced through tracer fire and made it home. And something shifted in the air. George blinked, and the hangar vanished. For a heartbeat, he wasn't 87 in a hangar, he was 20 again, alone in the sky, his Mustang shaking under him, flak bursts painting the air black and orange, his voice dry as he called out positions, felt the gun recoil through the stick and into his bones, watched a Messerschmitt spiral into smoke. It lasted a second. Then the hangar returned. Evans had seen the whole thing. The theft, the photo, the wings, and the moment in George's eyes where war stepped out of memory. He pulled out his phone, not to call base security but something higher. Hangar 4. Elderly civilian named George Patton. You need to get the wing commander. Now. Back at the command building, Colonel Marcus Davis heard the name and froze. The name wasn't random to him. It hung on a wall beside a painting of the 357th Fighter Group. Say it again. George Patton, sir. And the colonel's chair scraped back hard as he shouted for his car. Get Albright from the historian's office. Meet me at Hangar 4, now. At the hangar, Torres was still performing, waving the wallet, describing George as unstable, needing a psych eval, spinning it all to make himself the hero. But then the silence broke. Sirens. Not one. Several. A black staff car, a white command van, and a security truck rolled in fast, and everything stopped. Tools dropped. Men stood at attention. The doors opened. Colonel Davis stepped out, flanked by a Chief Master Sergeant and Dr. Albright. They didn't walk. They stormed. Straight to George. Davis stopped 3 steps away and gave the kind of salute you only give at funerals or monuments. "Mr. Patton," he said, voice thunderous, "it is an honor to have you on my base." George raised a frail hand in return. Not sharp, but enough. The colonel turned his head, fire in his eyes, and roared, "Airmen, do you have any idea who you're speaking to?" Dr. Albright stepped up, tablet in hand, voice trembling. "George Patton, enlisted 1943, flew with the 357th, 140 combat missions, triple ace, 22 confirmed kills. Flew this exact plane, serial number 44721-223. Valiant Lady. Awards. Distinguished Service Cross, 3 Silver Stars. Congressional Medal of Honor." The silence that followed could have held a funeral. Torres looked like he'd been punched. His Medal of Honor, Albright continued, was for single-handedly stopping a German bombing run on the 101st Airborne during Bastogne. 4 bombers downed, aircraft crippled. He brought it back smoking and bleeding. That man saved hundreds of lives. Davis stepped forward, eyes locked on Torres. "And inside that wallet you mocked. His original pilot wings, hand-pinned by General Doolittle." He turned to the chief. "I want their names, all of them. They will report to my office at 0600 tomorrow. They'll write 10,000 words on the 357th. And if they make it through that, maybe, they'll still earn the right to wear that uniform." Torres stammered. George raised a hand. Small, tired, but it hushed the room. "Son," he rasped, pointing to the Mustang, "she's not just a plane. She's a promise. We flew her not for parades or medals, but to keep a promise that others would get to live, that freedom would outlive us." His voice cracked but didn't break. "Respect isn't about saluting. It's about remembering why you can." The colonel nodded and retrieved the wallet, gently handing it back. George opened it slowly, his thumb brushing the wings, and again, for a heartbeat, he was 20. Lying in a field hospital, Doolittle's hand on his shoulder saying, "You brought them home, son. Never forget why." The next morning, Torres and his friends sat in a cold briefing room under Albright's unblinking gaze, notebooks in hand. Colonel Davis had already posted an apology across every board on base. A new heritage training program launched that day. Its first slide, George Patton and Valiant Lady. A week later, Torres passed by the hangar, off-duty, civilian clothes, unsure why his feet led him there. The light inside glowed gold. He stepped in. George was there, polishing, quiet, at peace. Torres hesitated, then spoke, voice soft. "Sir." Could you tell me about her?" George looked up slowly, and for the first time smiled. It was faint, but it changed everything. He patted a crate. "Pull up a seat, son," he said. "Let me tell you about the time her engine gave out over the Ardennes, and how we made it home anyway."